Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. A major update today on the future of Adrian Newey. Every source in the world yesterday saying that he's going to be leaving Red Bull with effectively immediate effect. The question is, where does he go? Ferrari, Aston Martin, Mercedes, or even potentially to retirement? The big discussion has been though today from Aston Martin sources that if they think he's going to go to any other team, it's going to be Ferrari. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Loads of new subs yesterday, really appreciate it. First of all, this is the big confirmation though today. Nico Hulkenberg confirmed out of Haas as soon as next season. We were wondering what was the next domino going to be to fall in the driver market. The theory was it's going to be Hulkenberg to Audi. It makes way too much sense and it's going to be happening right about now. So Haas confirmed Hulkenberg is gone and shortly afterwards they confirmed that he's going to be joining Kick Sauber as it currently is, but it's not going to be Kick Sauber for too much longer. And as we see here, Nico Hulkenberg and Andreas Steindl, former of course McLaren man, but now effectively the CEO of the Audi Formula 1 project, as it will be from 2026 and beyond. They're going to be working together again as they did back in the day for the Le Mans race. Honestly, the revival of Hulkenberg's career has been quite something to witness. Like, he's going to be in his 40s when this contract is over. Where he started from in his career ages ago, still hasn't got a podium. Maybe it's going to happen, right? Maybe Audi make a good enough car in like 2027 and he can finally stick it on the podium. But the fact that he was out of the sport, a reserve driver, comes back in, has done a stellar job against Magnussen and the Haas for the last couple of years, and has now got a mega contract offer from Audi. They're putting the money out there, Audi. They're not, denying that. They've got a 3-year deal, it seems, on the cards here for Hulkenberg. He'll be at Kick Sauber, as it'll still be next year. Then it's Audi 2026, Audi 2027. Pretty sure that's going to be the plan for Hulk, or at least he's going to be there for a couple of years. That's that's the confirmation from the Audi side, and they want Carlos Sainz alongside him. That is absolutely the intention of Audi. Whether they'll get Sainz is another question entirely, because Red Bull have apparently given Sainz an offer, but it might not be enough money for what he wants to accept at the moment, and Audi are trying to tell Sainz, like, make your decision before the summer break. For Hulkenberg, it's rather easier because he doesn't have a Red Bull offer, which is obviously rather tempting as it stands. Now, from the Haas side, it seems inevitable that the driver that has done many free practice sessions with Haas will be the favourite to replace Hulkenberg. That is, of course, Ollie Behrman did a stellar job in the Ferrari back in Jeddah, and Formula 2 hasn't really happened much since Australia, to be fair. So no real updates to see how he's getting on there, but clearly, after his performance in Jeddah, the feeling is for Mercedes, Antonelli is the man for them. The feeling is for potentially Ferrari in the future, Behrman might be the man for them. For now, Haas is the destination. I would have been concerned about this under Steiner, given what happened with Mick Schumacher, but I think nowadays the Haas seems a more competent machine than it has been before. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, the Ferrari has got better, therefore the Haas that buys everything they can from Ferrari has also got better, but they're at least an acceptable level car that can compete weekend to weekend without just falling flat through the field because their tyres simply cannot hold on. So Behrman almost certainly in that Haas next season. Question is, will they keep Magnussen or not? Magnussen, he is a bit of a volatile driver, it's got to be said. Many instances he gets into. The occurrence with Sonoda this past weekend in China wasn't good either. So that is going to be happening. And another quite quirky thing, really. Every time Hamilton changes teams in F1, as happened when he joined Mercedes, Hulkenberg joined Sauber. And again, he is joining Sauber. And it's still basically Sauber, but it's just going to be called Audi completely from 2026. Whether they can actually deliver a competitive car is another question. There's a big debate about that right now, but at least they're taking it seriously. German driver, German team, especially when it becomes Audi, just makes an awful lot of sense. So great story for Hulkenberg there. But the other big discussion that we needed to have updates on today was this Adrian Newey stuff. We talked about it yesterday. I know that Thomas Maher from from Planet F1, he said that he has sources telling him that this is not happening or he is going to run down his contract. But literally everybody else in the sport is telling us that Newey is departing Red Bull. Like, the BBC have reported on it. AMUS, of course, started it off. Formula Uno are saying it. Autosport are saying it. Sky Sports F1 are saying it. Sky Sports understands from senior figures in the sport that Newey has informally communicated to senior colleagues his wish to cut his near 2-decade ties with the team. Been there, of course, since way back in 2006. Autosport reporting the same thing. They actually didn't just, because quite often what happens is someone does an article like AMUS and then everyone else says, oh, AMUS are reporting this, but it's not necessarily their own sources. Autosport say, no, our own sources have confirmed this is true. The BBC have said it. Formula Uno then said it as well, basically on their own information. They also say a little bit more on what the next steps are, and also exactly how this has happened from within Red Bull, because I think it's become increasingly clear over the last really couple of years that the Red Bull situation has moved away from a reliance on Newey. I feel like Newey's departure, it's not going to kill Red Bull. They still have have a very strong technical team. His joining to another team is almost certainly going to make massively more impact, shall we say, to that other team than it will on the negative side leaving Red Bull, just because of how Red Bull have positioned themselves. But it is quite fascinating to think about the way things have developed under Horner over the last couple of years, because Newey has been arguably increasingly sidelined for whatever reason, despite being the most successful designer ever in Formula 1, to the RB17, the Hypercar project, and doing other things. And it's Pierre Wache and Enrico Balbo that have taken more of a technical lead under Horner. Now, it's still got to be said, the start of this regulation cycle, it was Newey still doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and it was actually mentioned in the races analysis on this that Newey would like a position where he has, in anything, more authority to, get maybe even the credit sometimes for his designs. So it's interesting to see if that's played a part here, that Red Bull have, if anything, decided, Newey is on his way out, he is 65. Maybe the feeling was from Horner that Newey's going to retire soon, and let's, kind of phase him out and make these other guys take over. And Newey, potentially in addition to the other push factors from Red Bull, that might be another one. But the whole Horner allegation relationship with Newey seems to have backfired. I'm not even sure who Horner does have a good relationship with anymore, because everything we hear is like, yep, the relationship with this guy is in a bit of a pickle, and it seems to be the same with Newey. This was mentioned in the Formula Uno article that apparently Mercedes are interested. I mean, why wouldn't they be interested? But we haven't really heard anything said about this. Only what Toto Wolff has kind of implied is some sort of strategy that he cannot reveal, which, according to what has been learned, apparently Wolff also wants Marco, because this is Wolff's master plan. If it's going to work is a question, but he wants Max, obviously, at Mercedes, and he's made that very clear publicly. And Max kind of follows Helmut Marko. At least if Marko was to leave Red Bull, Max has made it very clear he would leave as well. And that is probably going to happen at some point. So I guess the question is when? Could it be sooner rather than later? And if there is a world in which somehow, apparently if economics go out the window and Mercedes pay anything required to get Marko, to get Newey, that would probably be enough to tell Max, all right, look, our car's been not been the best the last couple of years, bit of a tractor this season, but maybe with Newey and Marko and Verstappen, then they could turn that around. That would be like the only way, if I'm Max, that I'm joining Mercedes, is if they get Newey as well. But the article goes on to say that, sure, Ferrari and Aston are the most likely, and we'll discuss the most likely of those two in a second. But apparently Newey has not yet made a decision on this, according to what they have learned. So I guess we'll see over time whether that's the case. Now, Newey's also made it clear that, the future may be interesting for him. This is why I think retirement is a relatively unlikely possibility, just for guys like Adrian Newey in this sport. Marco's near on 80, and I think that if he was planning to retire, I think he would just ride out his contract at Red Bull until next season and then just call it a day. But I don't know, the way that he's gone about things makes me feel like he's not going to retire. Now, he may retire and then unretire and work for Ferrari. Theoretically, that maybe is a possibility. And even Hamilton, after he joined Ferrari, said that my move has shown anything's possible. Going to be a very interesting next 6 months or so. And this is a quote from Newey back in the day as well, where he said that, yeah, working with Lewis would have been fabulous, but it's just never happened. But that circumstance. But of course, it is now, again, possible and on the table. So this is the discussion, Rogue Van Haren, as to how important Newey has actually been for the Red Bull team, because it's quite clear that his role has been somewhat diminished and sidelined over the last couple of years. The discussion has been that Wache's taken more charge, Balbo's taken more charge, and Horner said last year Newey only spent 50% of his time working on the car. Sources around the top of the team previously stated Newey didn't even see the RB20, only for the first time he saw it was at the presentation in Milton Keynes in February. So I'm not sure I really fully believe the idea that the chief technical officer of Red Bull Racing didn't even see the new car. Like, he must have been involved to some degree. Now, is his involvement more reduced than it was previously? Probably yes. Does Newey like that? Not necessarily, according to some of the information that has been going around. Why would you do such a thing to Newey is another question, and maybe it just got kind of put over the edge, as it were, by the Horner scandal, allegations, and stuff like this, especially because there are rumours today, according to the article that the race put together, that the personal assistant, let's say the complainant, or whatever you want to say, complainant, in the Horner Red Bull case, is also Newey's personal assistant as well. So, maybe it's very much a personal thing why Newey no longer feels that working with Horner is an acceptable situation, and that may well have had a large part to play here, because, guys like Newey, They don't like the politics in situations like this, and Red Bull has maybe become an untenable situation for Newey internally as that continues onwards. So Washer even said this back in January, I think, that yes, Newey is irreplaceable. Like, so good, can't replace him, but on a daily basis, he is not part of our process. He's more coming in from sideways, trying to help us or challenge us on different aspects. So I think that Newey leaving, it is a signal of something of Red Bull, and I'm sure Max Verstappen will see that as a sign of great instability, frankly, within the team. But him leaving doesn't mean that Red Bull all of a sudden aren't going to be able to create good cars anymore. But you've got to say for 2026, when the regulations again dramatically change, at which point Newey was, we believe, crucial to the success that they had, especially on the suspension, shall we say, back in 2022, it would be a different story in 2026 if Newey wasn't there. Will they still produce a good car next year? Yes, I'm sure. But will Newey be more valuable elsewhere than Red Bull would lose? Possibly yes, which is why other teams will need to try and sign him. And I'm sure that there is part of Newey that thinks, you know what, could I just kick my feet up and chill out and relax? Especially because I'm pretty sure he's just bought this, or built this maybe, I know people were talking about it, an Oyster yacht that he may well sail around the globe. I don't know. He obviously loves sailing, and it's a plausible reality where Newey just retires, sails off into the sunset, and enjoys the rest of his days. But I feel like for guys like Newey, especially guys that are so talented, and also guys that have motivations in terms of, you know, working with Ferrari, he said would be lovely. Working with Hamilton, with Alonso, these type of guys is on his bucket list of things to do. And those are things that he still can take off, and he would be effectively given the world by Ferrari to let this happen. He may not decide to, but I have a hard time believing the greatest design genius in Formula 1 history is just gonna, you know, sit back and watch from the sidelines and retire when you've got, you know, guys like Marco that are 80 and still going on. And this is what Craig Slater and many others say, that, and he was, I think the race even did a poll on this on YouTube last year. It's basically like, if you're building a team from scratch, who do you sign? Do you sign Verstappen? Do you sign Horner? Like, who do you sign? Or is it Newey? And most people will say that Newey is the most important person, arguably, in Formula 1 as it stands. So then the question is, where's he actually going to go? And also, when can he depart? This is the debate that's being had at the moment, because Newey is obviously under contract until the end of 2025. Red Bull Racing has said that they are unaware of any internal communication from Newey notifying his intention to serve notice and to leave Red Bull Racing. They also said that they were unaware of him potentially joining any other team, which kind of implies that that might be the direction that he looks to take. So his contract runs out at the end of next season. He would require a year of gardening leave at that point, you would imagine, which would take him up until 2027 when he could work for another Formula 1 team. That is if everything goes as it presently is. But we know these things about contracts in Formula 1. They are only as good as, well, for the time being. There is a world in which Newey can either negotiate with Red Bull on this type of stuff, and even the BBC actually said this in their article, that Newey's contract expires at the end of 25, but he is said to believe that he can negotiate an exit that allows him to work with another team from next season. So the discussion is that, well, technically, if Red Bull go by what the letter of the contract says, Newey wants to leave basically now, he will have to wait entirely next year until his contract closes. Then, a year after that, he would have to wait on gardening leave. But let's say he just retires now, and then unretires, right, in 2026. What does that mean for his contract? I don't really know the answers to this. But apparently Newey is confident, according to BBC sources, that he can negotiate a relationship where he can work sooner than 2027. Also implies that he does want to work elsewhere in the first place. And the other question would be, these contracts are only defined as such until money starts coming along. Like, what if Ferrari, theoretically, Ferrari come knocking on the door and they say, hey, Red Bull, we will pay exorbitant amounts of money to get Newey now, because Red Bull could theoretically hold Newey to the contract, or they could say, all right, for a certain amount of money, we will allow you to buy out the contract and have maybe, a 12-month gardening leave. I think the plan would be ideally that Newey was to join another team, this time next year, maybe in April 25, and therefore he could work through the design process for the 2026 cars at the very least. I think that would be the intention. So, if there was a buyout or some sort of relationship like that, it is possible. And I think that Ferrari, now Newey's going to leave Red Bull. They are not going to hold anything back. And Aston Martin might be in a similar position, but they held nothing back Ferrari when it came to securing Lewis Hamilton. They offered him everything he wanted. They paid him all the money in the world. They gave him all the ambassadorial relationships in the world. They would offer Newey, we'll give you this nice mansion near Maranello, we'll get your kids through school or whatever it takes, right? I mean, I'm sure that they would pull out all the stops, especially because it's this attainable to get Newey now. You've got to think that they're going to try. So, he might retire. Assuming it's these other potential candidates, where could he go? I mean, McLaren is maybe not impossible, but it just feels very unlikely right now for McLaren. Of course, he's worked there before as well. So I think for Newey, he'd probably think, winning championships with Williams, with McLaren, with Red Bull, and then potentially Ferrari. That is, potentially quite the career. Could be true for Mercedes, could be true for Aston as well. He'd be able to stay in the UK to do that. But Ferrari is seemingly a possibility. And this is when we get the latest update on the story that sources inside Aston Martin, the other team keenly linked to Newey over the last several weeks, have apparently said they think if he's going to go anywhere, it's going to be Ferrari. Take this as you will, but Craig Slater on Sky Sports was reporting that Aston Martin insiders, they don't think they're getting Newey because, we don't know how those contract negotiations have gone with Newey, if anywhere at all. We believe that Aston made an offer, probably a very sizable offer, to Adrian Newey to try and make this happen, especially because there's news today, I think, that Lawrence Stroll is looking to sell an additional 25% stake in the team. So, there's money over there at Aston Martin. There's no doubt about that. They could offer Newey a lot to make this happen. But would Newey be more motivated to continue working in Formula One for presumably his final stint in the sport at Aston or at Ferrari? I mean, one of those is theoretically more appealing than the other, despite the Honda partnership that they will have from 2026 and beyond. So Aston insiders are saying it's going to be Ferrari if it's going to be anywhere. So very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure we're going to get more updates on this, but quite clearly that Red Bull implosion that we discussed is happening, unless Newey somehow doesn't leave, but literally every reporter under the sun is saying that it's happening at this point, so maybe it's only a matter of time until we see further updates. Just one final thing to mention before we close out the video here with Stefano Domenicali, Formula One CEO. He's at it again. This year we have 24 rounds and we have 6 sprint races. There's another one next weekend, unfortunately, in Miami, and Domenicali says, yeah, fantastic, I love sprints. Why not? Let's do more. I would say this is great. It keeps the tension on every single day. To be honest though, the way that sprints are now done has them as a real side piece to the event, as it were, right? Because they're not even the entirety of Saturday anymore. They are the last thing Friday for qualifying, the first thing Saturday, and then main qualifying really takes over as the storyline on the Saturday afternoon. So I don't think that Formula One have really done the best. If they really like sprints, I think the new format is better, but I don't think it really pretends the sprint is particularly important. And the drivers just generally don't particularly like them. And we even got this from Max Verstappen saying that he was much happier being on pole position for the main Grand Prix than he was even winning the sprint race. So I think that goes to show everything you need to know, really. And Max, as many other drivers, vehemently against the introduction of further sprint races and even sprint races as it stands. And Domenicali also said today, 24 races, we're going to stick with that for now, but for how much longer would be my question, and how many more sprints are we going to get? These poor engines, they didn't have to do that many races back in the day. Now they've got to do 24, 6 sprints. What are they going to do? 12 sprints? It's going to be a disaster, isn't it? But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.